I've got 15 minutes, really just to make you think a bit differently about how you go about defending your networks and protecting the assets within the borders of your network. So I've got 15 minutes to do that. There's practically nothing in here about products. I just want you to think a little bit differently about how you defend your organizational property. So who doesn't like sport in here? Okay, not many of you. Now I asked that in a way that would mean probably very few of you would put your hand up, so very slightly deceptive. But those of you that have played cricket will know that a googly is very difficult to defend against. You know, you've got a bowler concealing what they're doing, the ball comes down, you think it's going one way, it goes the other, and you get out. Pretty difficult to defend against. Those of you that have played squash in the past, there's nothing worse than running around like a headless chicken. There's some guy on the tee, front of the court, little drop shot, little flick to the back of the court, and you're running around like a headless chicken, and it's a fantastic tactic, and you're running around sweating like an idiot, and it's extremely frustrating. But it's just a very basic dummy and deception to put you off guard, change your direction, and you'll probably lose the point. Those of you that enjoy rugby will know that 20 years ago, those of you that are English, Matt Dawson was brilliant at this. You know, you'd be defending your try line, you'd have the ball at the base of a ruck, the opponents are 5 meters from your try line, a little dummy from the base of the ruck, the opponents go offside, you then get a penalty, you hoof the ball 60 meters back up the pitch, you've then got the line out and possession, and you've completely changed the course of the game through a very simple dummy that put the opponents offside. Very simple little piece of deception that completely changes the course of the game. Now that was so successful, World Rugby banned it. You can't do that anymore. You will have seen none of that in the World Cup that just took place, and we won't talk about any of the results. I think I spoke to a South African fellow earlier. Who knows about this story? Okay, so Colleen Rooney, lover or hater, she's very well known. There were some very strange stories that were coming out in the press. Okay, the fact that their £20 million house had been flooded, that she was going off to Mexico in a desperate attempt to get some sort of gender therapy to have a baby girl, because I think she's got 4 boys. Another classic one, that she was somehow coming back to appear on Strictly Come Dancing. Now, why am I showing this? Colleen Rooney, she's on social media. She was sharing various bits of information with her friends, and she couldn't work out why many of these stories were appearing in The Sun, whatever newspaper, and she just couldn't quite work out. She knew someone was leaking these stories. So she came up with this very clever, cunning sort of deception idea, whereby she thought she knew who it was, so she blocked everyone bar the person she thought who it was. So the stories she was putting out there were completely fake, but they were only going to one person, and hey presto, they were turning up in the press. Okay, and it happened to be Rebecca Vardy, allegedly, I should say that. Okay, but a very clever use of deception within personal relationships that allowed her to essentially trap and catch the individual that was causing her some harm. Now, if we're going to go and catch mice in our house, what's the first thing we put down? It's traps. If you've got attackers that you think might be in your network, what should you do? It's just a question, no need to answer. So some of these stories might appeal to the colonel on my side, but if we look at warfare, deception is an absolutely critical and successful tactic. So the Greeks laid siege to Troy. They couldn't get in. They spent 10 years trying to do it. They pretended to sail off into the distance. They left this lovely horse outside that the Trojans thought was a present. Inside was a huge army, including Odysseus. The Trojans pulled it in. That night, out came all the attackers, slayed the city, won the war. 10 years, one simple tactic changed the complete course of that conflict. If we look at World War I, the Germans had fantastic, hopefully I'm getting all this right, by the way, because the colonel will haul me off if I'm getting it wrong. But in World War I, the Germans had fantastic undersea capability with untersea boats, U-boats. We had very poor submarine capability. So what we did to counter this advantage that they had was sail out Navy ships dressed as merchant ships. So essentially a kind of a wolf in sheep's clothing. Okay, we'd sail out, up would come the untersea boats thinking this is something interesting to attack. We'd take all our clothes off, raise the Royal Navy sign, start hammering the hell out of these untersea boats. Very, very clever tactic. World War II, some amazing pieces of deception that changed the course of the World War. One of the most famous is this one here. In fact, they made a film out of it called The Man Who Never Was, and this was Operation Mincemeat. So we created this whole persona of an individual. It was a dead body, dressed it up as an officer, put plans on it, gave it a passport, dropped it off the coast of Spain. The tide pushed it in. The Spanish found the body, who were neutral at the time, gave it to the Germans. The Germans read all these plans. They thought we were going to attack via Sardinia. We actually went in via Sicily and completely changed the course of how we took back Western Europe as the Allies. Very, very clever deception. Absolutely worked. Same happened in Operation Desert Storm. If you just look up Deception Desert Storm, it's absolutely brilliant. Colonel Norman, was he a colonel? Norman Schwarzkopf? He was a colonel. Was absolutely lauded for this piece of military tactics. Essentially, the Iraqis thought we were going to go in sea invasion via Kuwait. We'd done all sorts of things. The press were taking pictures of tanks by the beach, all manner of different things to make the Iraqis think we were going in that way. In fact, what happened, we put this huge left flank attack in that completely took out the Republican Guard. And if you do remember, it was over very, very quickly. But a fantastic piece of deception that put the Iraqis completely off their guard. Now, if we look at cyber and defending our networks, even the retired Chief of Defence Intelligence, Air Marshal Phil Osborne, has absolutely said that deception and counter-deception are going to be critical with dealing with cyber threats. Okay? This isn't just about critical national infrastructure. This isn't just about military. This is also about organisations defending their assets. So, the question is, are we in a cyber war and should we be using the same tactics? Well, the answer is absolutely. If you look at this is from a website called Information is Beautiful. All of these organisations have spent millions, probably billions, building walls around their organisation, okay? Perimeter security. All of them have been breached. So over time, you can see it just gets more and more and more. And really and truly, it is when, not if. Okay? If you really think you're never going to be penetrated or have a malicious insider, then you're dreaming. These people have spent millions, billions, probably more than you, and they've all been breached. Okay, so change your thinking and think about how you would defend that soft, gooey center inside your network. And the problem today is, and it should focus the mind, is that people are being fined. Okay, and I don't think this is going to go away. So Gartner have talked quite heavily about changing the rationale from the perimeter to detection inside the network. And these lines shouldn't track in step, which is perimeter security going up kind of linearly, but breaches going up much more quickly. And the real problem is today, when an attacker gets in, everything they find inside your networks is real. Everything. Real servers, real documents, real SWIFT payment systems, real intellectual property, real customer databases, probably not very structured. It's all real information. Everything. And you know what? Criminals, attackers, they use deception on us. What is a spear phishing email if not deception? They've researched you on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is, sent you an email specifically designed to make you do something that you wouldn't normally do. You click on it, they now have a point of presence. They have deceived you into doing something. Use that tactic back. So, what's an attacker going to do when they get inside your network? Generally, they'll find a point of presence on a machine through a spear phishing email. They'll look for credentials in memory. They'll try and find connections to other systems to move laterally. They'll try and find the crown jewels of Active Directory. Create a man-in-the-middle attack to start trying to harvest credentials. Do some network reconnaissance to try and find out where your finance, HR server, your documents are with all the IP that you have. They may just try and destroy stuff and find documents with the sole purpose of finding a target, getting out and making some money. What if a lot of what they found was fake? You've completely changed the economics of the attack. You've frustrated, you've concealed, you've misdirected your attacker. Just like you would in sport, just like you would in warfare. You're just using the same tactic back. So some of you might be thinking, oh, this is just honeypots. I've seen it all before. Not true. Honeypots were always designed to stand out. Oh, look, something's hit it. Great. What intelligence is that going to give you? And you've spent a lot of time putting them out there, hard to manage. Deception is designed to absolutely blend in and look identical to the assets that you have inside your organization, such that an attacker simply cannot work out the difference between real and fake, but hidden away from a legitimate user such that they would never touch it. Now, the beauty of that is, many of you may have SIMs, okay? Lovely log management tools. Keep them. They're great. But in there, you get lots and lots of false positives. God, what do I go after? Okay, where's the problem inside this mass of logs? So SOAR technologies have come out to try and kind of correlate the needle in the haystack, okay? With a deception solution, it should be absolutely quiet. No legitimate user should ever touch those assets. Therefore, the solution is quiet. It's not alerting. But when it does alert, you know damn well you've got a problem. Why is somebody touching the finance, the mimicked finance server? Why is someone poking it? Why is someone opening a document that gives me an alert that has, executive salaries hidden away somewhere in a file share that no one should be going near? Okay? Should be absolutely quiet. So I'm not going to bore you with the architecture, okay? My technical man, Nick, at the back will love to do that, okay? But very simply, we're putting down this dense fabric of deceptive assets that no legitimate user should ever talk to. And once touched, you absolutely know you've got a problem. So very simply, to wrap up, attackers will get into your enterprise. Deception shrinks dwell time. They will stumble across our stuff, and you can detect and respond to that immediately. We're changing the course, we're changing the economics. If you're concealing, misdirecting, you're changing the economics of a breach. An attacker's going to take far, far longer to try and actually get to something that is valuable. You'll start to see more coverage in NIST, in the NIST frameworks. There's already deception as part of many of those policy documents. And you should have seen there's been a very good Gartner report recently about deception out there. So I hope that's given you some food for thought about how you defend your organizational assets. Thanks.